of the biggest questions somebody has when they are considering having a home birth is, could I even have one? The short answer is yes. Home birthing is an option you can choose here in Australia, but whether it is a suitable option for you depends on a few important things. The biggest one is whether your pregnancy is a low risk pregnancy. Low risk is the first thing your care providers will look at. There are also some other eligibility requirements that a care provider might look at when assessing if home birthing is a suitable option for you. I had a planned home birth with my first baby 2 years ago in Melbourne, Australia, and figuring out whether I was even eligible to have a home birth was a big part of that journey. So in this video, I'll explain exactly what low risk pregnancy means, what are some other typical eligibility requirements that you would need to meet if you're planning for a home birth, and I'll finish by sharing one thing that actually made me feel more confident about choosing a home birth as an option. Before we talk about anything else, it's important to understand this one thing. When people ask, can I have a home birth? Your care provider is actually trying to assess, is this currently a low risk pregnancy? What I mean by care providers is, in Australia, home births are attended by registered midwives. So before a midwife takes you on, they are actually trying to assess if you're even eligible to have a home birth. So the reason why they even ask this question, that are you a low risk pregnancy, is because in Australia, home births are intended for low risk pregnancies, not for high risk pregnancies. Now, low risk does not mean no risk. Low risk pregnancy simply means that at this present moment, there are no known factors that would mean you or your baby needs specialized monitoring and care during labor and birth. So what does a low risk pregnancy mean? So generally, a low risk pregnancy means that you are healthy, your body is healthy, your pregnancy is progressing normally, you are carrying one baby, your baby is head down, you are full term, so that is between 37 weeks gestation and 42 weeks gestation, and that you are experiencing no pregnancy complications or any other severe medical conditions. Sometimes what low risk pregnancy is easier to understand when you understand what might classify a pregnancy as high risk. Some things that might classify a pregnancy as high risk is if you develop high blood pressure or preeclampsia during your pregnancy, if you are carrying more than one baby, so not a singleton baby but twins or multiples, if your baby isn't head down, so if it is a breech baby, that would also classify you as high risk. If your baby is preterm, so it's before 37 weeks gestation. Next, you develop a pregnancy complication such as gestational diabetes can push you to high risk. Next, if you've had a previous cesarean or any other medical conditions that your care provider deems not low risk. Now, of course, this isn't an exhaustive list. There might be things that I haven't listed here, and also different home birth care providers might have slightly different eligibility requirements, but generally these are the common factors that might push a pregnancy to high risk. If you want to know more, I've linked some websites down below that I had found really useful when I was pregnant and researching home birth. They are focused on home births in Australia. One is a government website, so definitely check those links out if you want to know more about this. But hopefully this gives you a good idea of what a low risk pregnancy versus a high risk pregnancy looks like. If you're watching this thinking, oh my god, I have one of these high risk factors, please don't feel like anything is wrong with you. Please don't hear that as something negative. It simply means that you would benefit from more specialized monitoring and care during your labor and birth. Remember, the goal is to have the safest birth for you and your baby, not necessarily a hospital or a home birth. I remember for me when I was so focused on having a home birth, and I really wanted to have a home birth no matter what, that I had to really change my mindset about it, because having a home birth is just a plan. It's a plan to have birth at home. Things can change during your pregnancy, during your labor, during your birth, that might mean that having birth at home is no longer a safer option, and that's okay too. You meet your birth wherever it is at, rather than you trying to bring your birth to meet your expectations of what your birth should look like. So I remember when I was sitting for my gestational diabetes test, I was so anxious because I thought like, oh my God, if I was having GD, I cannot have a home birth. And I was sitting in that room feeling so anxious that this might push me to high risk. Luckily, I didn't have GD, but it taught me a valuable lesson to just be flexible and go with the flow, because at the end of the day, what we really, really want is a safe birth for you and your baby. And if that means I have gestational diabetes and I no longer can give birth at home, then be it, because that's no longer a safe option for me. Home birthing should only be an option if it is safe for you and your baby at all times. Being low risk is the biggest requirement, but it's not the only requirement. There are a few other things that your care providers would usually look at. First is ongoing antenatal care. So when you are signing up to have a home birth, you need to make sure you are having ongoing care during pregnancy as you would if you were to give birth at an hospital, where you still continue having your appointments, where you're being monitored, your baby's well-being is being assessed, and you have discussed your changes in risk at every stage. Second is having qualified registered midwives. In Australia, it's legally required, if you're having a home birth, to have 2 registered midwives attend your birth. Another factor is where you live. So most care providers will want you to live within a reasonable distance of a hospital in case of an emergency or in case transfer to a hospital is necessary. So for us, the closest hospital in case of an emergency was 15 minutes away, and our preferred hospital was about 25-30 minutes away. Our care providers made sure that we're in a 30-minute radius of a hospital, and they calculated the time it took to travel in a car at midday, so at 12:30 p.m. They checked how long it took to get from our home to the hospital. Next, your home needs to be suitable for birth. This doesn't mean that it needs to be huge and massive. It simply means you need to have safe access to the house, that emergency services can reach your house safely, and there is enough space for birthing equipment. If you're looking for a birthing pool, there's enough space for you to set it up, and then other emergency equipments that your midwives might carry. So planning a home birth isn't simply deciding, yep, I'm just going to give birth at home, guys. There's actually a lot of assessment and planning that goes on behind the scenes. Before I finish, I really wanted to share what made me feel more confident about choosing a home birth. And that is that every home birth has a transfer to hospital plan. So what I mean is, if you were to plan for a home birth, your care providers are going to plan for you to transfer to hospital at every stage. At first, this sounded scary to me. I was like, wait, does this mean you're expecting something to go wrong? But I eventually realized it's actually the very opposite. They are trying to make sure that nothing happens in panic, that you are very well aware of what the plan is if your circumstances change, whether that happened before labor, during labor, or after birth. So planning for transfer to hospital is a good, great, amazing part of a home birthing plan. Anything changes during pregnancy, if labor isn't progressing well, if I have now requested for an epidural because I can no longer do this at home, if the baby needs additional monitoring, it's all good. There is a plan in place. Our midwives went through a list of 30 things that if any of these things happened, it warrants a transfer to hospital. And we had to sign the consent form saying that, yep, if any of these things happen, it will be okay for you to take us to the hospital. Because at that moment, when you're in the middle of it, there is no negotiation about this. They were very clear about any of these things happening, and we would start planning to transfer to the hospital. Mind you, home birthing midwives are really good at identifying early warning signs. They are very good at picking it out even before something happens. So it really felt good. It felt like they had our backs, that they're not going to let anything bad happen to you or your baby, and that they've got it. So that was very reassuring. And the transfer to hospital plan already had everything, which hospital we would go to. So if anything changed before we went into labor, which hospital we would go to. If anything happens in labor but it's not an emergency, which hospital we would go to. And if at all it is an emergency and we desperately need attention, which hospital we would go to. My records, my pregnancy records were already sent to those hospitals. So they were ready as well. So nothing got decided in panic. All of this was incredibly reassuring and made me feel 100 times more confident about choosing home birth as an option, because like I said, the first most important goal is for you to have the safest birth, whether it's at home, at a hospital. It's always to have the safest birth for you and your baby. So as you can see, planning a home birth is not the same as free birth. There can be a misconception that it is. Free birth means you give birth without a medical professional present at your birth. You do it without any monitoring throughout your pregnancy and during your birth. But home birth is quite the opposite. It means you are supported by registered midwives. You do get ongoing antenatal care during pregnancy and even in postpartum. Your baby will still be assessed after birth, and there is a plan in place if you need to transfer to the hospital. So you're not stepping outside the healthcare system to have a home birth. You are just choosing a different birthing environment when you're choosing to birth at home, but you're still very much within the healthcare system. If you're wondering whether you qualify to have a home birth, the best place to start is by talking to a registered midwife and getting them to assess your very particular pregnancy and your very specific situation. They will look at your individual pregnancy and explore options with you and help you understand what is the safest for you and your baby. And if you're curious to know more about what actually happens if you were to transfer to a hospital, my next video is going to talk about that. So stay tuned. Thank you. See you next time.